Well, welcome again to another session of the 18th annual Transforming the Teaching and Learning Environment virtual conference. I'm Bob Hales, I'm your moderator. We are fortunate to have with us Mina Berry and Melissa Johnson, both from Collin College in Texas, and they have a lot of experience in terms of teaching online. They're going to talk about showcasing zero cost, open source virtual courses. Well, I think that's going to be really interesting. So, Melissa and Mina, it's all yours.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Welcome in. I'm Meena Bedi. I'm a professor of economics, and I have my colleague, Melissa Johnson. Melissa teaches history at Melissa teaches history at Collin College. So we both are here to share our zero cost OER courses with you, which we developed a few years back. Sorry, I guess I switched to something else rather than my PowerPoint. Sorry about that. Technology hurdle I'm facing. Somehow it is switching to other tab. So in the meantime, I'll start talking about what we have created. So we have zero cost OER courses.
We can see your PowerPoint.
You do? Okay.
Yes, we can see
Okay,
it. There you
perfect.
go.
Perfect. Okay. All right. So this is on the left-hand side. If you scan this QR code, this has all the resources we have on OER. So please feel free to scan the QR code. This will take you to a resource page, which my wonderful colleague Melissa created in Canva. She is a pro at Canva. She is a pro at Genially. And this has all the resources which we're gonna walk you through in this PowerPoint presentation. Okay, so together we are excited to share the work we have done in designing two zero-cost OER courses, one in economics and the other one in history. Our goal today is to show you what is possible when we reimagine course design with accessibility, affordability, and engagement at the center. So, like many faculty, our OER journeys began with curiosity and a desire to reduce financial burden for our students. We wanted to offer free of cost, zero cost courses that are well designed. So our starting point was Texas Learn OER. We both are located at Collin College, which is a suburban northern county of Dallas in Texas. So we started with Texas Learn OER. This was our first structured introduction to OER. And this is a statewide resource. It provided clarity on licensing, quality standards, and the broader purpose behind what it takes to develop an OER course. So when we started taking this course, it helped us think critically about how to access different resources, what is behind CC BY, what are all these copyright and attribution issues. So this course gave us an introduction to all that. So if you want to scan the QR code, it will take you to the course. It has several modules. We gained both the confidence as well as practical know-how on how to build an open source zero cost course by taking this course. And I guess, Melissa, you will agree, this was our starting point. And then after taking the course, we started looking at several repositories. These are the three repositories: OER Commons, OER TX, and Skills Commons. Skills Commons has all the workforce courses, and OER Commons has all the credit courses. And in fact, this is the bottom center picture is one of the courses which five of my colleagues we have developed, and it is housed at OERTX. These repositories are rich. They offer textbooks, modules, simulations, images, videos, you name it, you will find it in these repositories. So if you want to scan this QR code, it will take you to the OERTX repository. You can find courses by subject area. You can find resources by topics if you want to explore these repositories. There are links to these repositories in our Canva resource as well. Okay. Was course design. For me, I had taken QM courses as well as AQ certification. So backward design is what made sense to me. So I started with the designing each module from the outcomes first. In Texas, we have state mandated outcomes. So I started with that. Then I designed the module level outcomes based on state learning objectives for the course. And after having those module level outcomes, then I created assessments. And then after creating assessments, I created rest of the course material. So backward design means starting with the outcome which we want our students to achieve, and then designing the assessment, and then designing the course material around that assessment. Second principle which I followed was universal design for learning. It ensured that all the material is accessible and inclusive. Then we added layers of micro learning, bite-sized learning, so that students can absorb the information in manageable chunks. Now, OER gave us freedom to weave together textbooks, interactives, media, simulations, videos, podcasts, and much more. So basically, our courses are rich learning experiences for our students. So I teach economics, and I'm going to give you a glimpse of the resources which I use in my courses. The first one is Cost of Living Explorer. This lets you explore the cost of living by county level. So the link to this resource is in our resource page. And if you want to explore it side by side, please feel free. So you can see whichever county you live in, what is the cost of living in that county right now by population size, and what is the density of that county as well. The second resource is simulations. This is a simulation in a subject area like statistics. I also teach business statistics at my institution, and usually students do not like statistics a lot. So a dry subject like statistics, we can make that interactive using simulations. The simulations takes you to normal distribution interactive. It allows students to manipulate the variables and see what is the immediate impact when they change the mean of a distribution, or when they change the size of the sample. The third resource is virtual tour, one of my favorite ones. So this is a Dallas Fed virtual tour. It gives you an experience of visiting a federal building without per se visiting it. So, or virtually visiting it. So it takes you to all the resources which Dallas Fed building has, educational resources. And like you can change any static course with uh, a dynamic with an experience which students can remember lifelong. And links to all of these resources again are in our resource page. The next resource which I use is Economics Media Library. This has all the media clips by topic. This is accessible, and this offers very short clips, as I said, categorized by topic. Then it is perfect for micro learning for students because clips are, at the most 1 minute or 2 minutes. The next one is interactives. These are MRU interactives, and it offers a real-time experience with the graphs. Students can move the graph and see what is the impact when they move the demand to right-hand side or supply to left-hand side. What impact does it have on pricing? What impact does it have on quantity? And it gives students the real-time immediate feedback, and it's a very good experience for students to have and get real-time feedback, which helps them understand, okay, if they made a mistake, where was the mistake and how they can correct that. Usually with graphing, that is what students need. They need that real-time immediate feedback, and they need that experience of virtually moving that graph. Our students these days love to toggle with their screen, and having an ability to toggle a graph and learn from that, this is an amazing experience for our students, especially this generation who is always toggling on their phone screen. Okay, the next resource which I use is Freakonomics Radio. It's a podcast. I'm sure we all have heard about it. It's an amazing resource for learning in economics. Um, I usually let students, because I teach online, I let students listen to the podcast, then I have interactive questions based on the podcast. The next tool, Economic Marvels, is one of my favorite ones. And it has media and economics of Sephora, economics of Chuck E. Cheese, economics of sporting events. So many activities are there which are so interesting, and students pay attention because when we can relate it to their real life, like girls pay special attention to economics of Sephora, and when we relate it to their real life, that's what they want to learn. That's what grabs their attention. And the last resource which I want to share is Monday Morning Economist. They send an email every Monday with their article, which is based on current events. There is a QR code that you can scan. It will take you to the Monday Morning Economist page. And based on that article, on Tuesday, you can receive an email with a quiz. And this is all free of cost to the faculty members. And it has not only economics concept, but you can tweak it to other subject areas like even history and sociology for some topics. So all of these resources are free of cost, and I have designed this course totally free of cost for my students as well. And I love using these interactive resources because that gives students an ability to relate it to their own real life. And now I'm going to hand it over to my lovely colleague, Melissa.
Okay, Mina, I'm going to let you drive.
Sounds good.
So, well, she has some really great resources, and a lot of these can also be very interdisciplinary because when we first started putting this together and I was listening to her talk about some of those items, I was starting to realize that in history, we actually do cover a lot of economics. And so what could kind of carry over into my course as well. And so that's been like one of the great parts of being part of an online virtual campus is your ability to collaborate with your colleagues across the disciplines. And so for my course design principles, I decided to kind of come up with a theme for how I was going to generate my coursework. And so I wanted it to be discover, explore, and learn because I wanted it to be active for the students. And so first of all, I needed a good textbook and I wanted it to be a free open educational resource textbook. And book that I'm currently using is through Rice University, and the program is called OpenStax, and they have most freshman and sophomore level textbooks for the basic ed courses. So if you teach history, econ, English, algebra, any of the sciences, literatures, Western civs, all of that, you're going to be able to get a book from them. It comes, you can get a print book, it's online. It's very interactive. The students can download it. They can use it on their phones. I get really great reviews from it. And again, this is in the resource page that you were able to use the QR code for, but it's through Rice University and it's called OpenStax. So if you're currently looking for an online textbook that has a lot of content available with it, I can highly recommend this one. I also wanted narrative-driven learning because after all, history is about storytelling. So if we're going to kind of bring them in and have them walk through that period and learn all the important parts, that kind of narrative-driven learning required me to find materials that will help push the narrative. And so one of the things that I really like to make a connection to are museums and scholars. And I do that in various ways, whether that's through a virtual tour at a museum. There's also podcasts. I can bring those scholars in. Then primary source materials, not only what's in the textbook, but also a lot of primary source materials are also out there. They're easy to find. And then I can incorporate those. Interactive activities. There's a lot of different websites, and we're going to take a look at a few that have elements where students are actually kind of walking through things. And I think that, as Mina was saying earlier, about having the ability to have scenarios, I think that helps students apply their knowledge. And so I'm always looking for something like that. Again, interdisciplinary. In a lot of my readings, I call it the across the hall. So for example, when we're covering World War I, and we're going to talk about the Spanish flu, my across the hall assignment is actually to a biology assignment about the flu and what they knew. So I try to make those kinds of connections where I can. It could be across the hall to economics. It could be across the hall to American Lit. And so kind of weaving those in, it kind of expands that opportunity for the students. And as always, my class is in a continuous state of improvement because I'm always learning, which is what makes coming to a conference like this so great, is I'm gleaning details and I'm learning from all of you to take back into my course and make those changes. Mina, I think we can go to the next slide. So where do you find the good stuff? This takes a little bit of time. But once you find the good stuff, you'll really get excited about what is actually available out there that's free. And you have a lot more creative license when you're using OER because you're not tied to it being in a textbook, that was $150 or publisher content that you can't edit to fit your liking. In this way, everything is featured the way you want it to be featured, and it's placed within the course where you want it to be placed at your pacing and with your scaffolding in place. And so finding those interactive exhibits and primary sources, photographs and prints, museums, historical statistics. Again, this is where Mina and I can talk to one another because we're going to use a lot of those same resources, scenarios and simulation systems, as well as videos and podcasts. Then once I have those, I can make those work for my students. So go ahead, Mina, that's fine. That's kind of where I was going. Okay, so some of the really fun ones I put all on the same page. So my students, again, and I'm sure yours are the same, they love to be able to click and go. They love to be able to explore. And so the first one is Lewis and Clark, and it's a Google Earth Voyager series where they can actually walk the path and they can zoom in and they can go and take a look at those historical sites there. And they can talk about the path of Lewis and Clark while they're learning about it. And they can actually go see kind of those places. The next one is a series of mini simulations. And this is actually through the National World War I Museum. So, I mean, if you'll open that link where it says Explosion of the USS Maine.
Can you see it?
Oh, it didn't want to come up. It might not do it. No.
No? Now?
No.
Oops.
Well, that's okay. You have the link, so it's always good to have a backup, right? So we gave you
No, let's see if I can share it. This-
separately, maybe.
Yeah. Okay. Can you see it now?
There it is. Okay, now just scroll down, if you will. So now they're going to get an overview. They're going to be told that what is the situation, and then they're going to have to work through choices and consequences. And so that's a really great tool for students to use, applying what do they know and coming to a decision. And you can do this in group work or as an individual work. And there's several different simulations that they have here, which I think is great. So if we'll go back to the slideshow. Okay, the next one is by far my students' favorite in History 1302, which covers more modern America. And it is the National Air and Space Museum, and it is their virtual tour. So when we're in the chapter and we're talking about, the space race, I send my students here and they can actually go through this tour. So Mina, if you'll try to click that link for us. May make you do the same thing again.
Did it take you to the tab or no?
No, I'm sorry.
No? Okay. Okay. We can do it manually if it doesn't.
We'll make it work.
Yeah, we will make it work. Here it is. Can you see it now?
We can now. So Mina, now you just need to move your mouse so they can see how the students can actually walk through this exhibit. So I've been to the National Air and Space Museum many times in person, and you're walking the halls and they can zoom in. You can move your camera around using the mouse and you can zoom in and you can actually read the content on the walls and you can walk your way through this whole exhibit as if you're there. And a lot of the larger museums have these. So sometimes if it's in my early American history class, we're going to go to Colonial Williamsburg, and I think they have about 6 different tours. So there's different museums that offer these virtual tours. Some of them come with an audio tour with it as if you're actually there. So these are some of my students' favorite assignments, and it really expands their knowledge and helps them understand not just the history, but also in how history is being interpreted and how history can be shared. And I find that they write a lot about these. I get really great papers from these types of assignments where the students get excited to find something that they found interesting within that they want to share with the class. Okay, Mina, we'll go back to the slideshow. Okay, next slide. I won't make you click on these. So, and I think I misspoke earlier about the simulations. I think that's the Council on Foreign Relations, and then this one is the World War I Museum, and they have lesson plans. That's the other great thing about history is there's so many wonderful museums and historical societies around the country, and they produce great educational content. And so I can take that, and because you can bring it in and you can use parts of it, you can use all of it. and you can design assignments that fit what you're needing in your classroom. And so I was able to go in and take some of those lessons from the World War I Museum, particularly on the Zimmerman notes. And so my students can go visit what the museum had on the Zimmerman note, watch the videos, and listen to the scholars speak, which was wonderful. And then I can design assignments based on that content. And that can change as the exhibits change at these museums. That's the other great part, is that it's not stale content. You're bringing in fresh content and new scholars. And then, of course, there's always the Library of Congress and their digital collection and the National Archives. So looking at bringing in a lot of visuals is also important to help students understand history and to be able to analyze those types of documents, and photographs are skills for them to learn. And all of this, again, is free. And so we kind of bring it all together within the class, so that within the module, then they're reading from my OER textbook. Then I have a series of assignments that are going to use these kinds of resources for them to use the content and to develop the knowledge, share that knowledge in the discussion board, and maybe work in groups using the Lucid Spark board. We use the Canvas learning management system at our school. And so Mina is great at the Lucid Spark boards of building that kind of collaboration with the students in their content. And so those are some of the ways that I'm kind of weaving in these outside content that aligns with the textbook that I have, but it gives me so many great opportunities to change the content as things come. So next slide. History in 5 or podcasts, and this is done by I think it's Simon & Schuster. And so they'll bring in scholars, and it's 5 minutes on their latest book. And so I think there's about 800 episodes in there, actually. It's very large. And so if I'm on chapter and I know of a book, I'll see if they have interviewed an author. And so my students are getting access to those scholars. And so there's been really wonderful presentations on there that I can tie right into what we're learning about that week. And that has been, my students write a lot about that as well. There's other podcasts that I use. There's stuff you didn't know, stuff you didn't know in history. There's presidential history. There's one called Ridiculous History. And quite honestly, it is ridiculous. And the students do love it. So you'll find that the more you find on those. And then, of course, the students often say, well, I'm listening to one. You should listen to this. And so you'll also learn from the students. So it provides for them a collaborative opportunity with the professor, which I also think is something that builds community in the class, because we're all building our knowledge base together. One great resource for primary documents is actually part of an online textbook called The American Yawp. And it is an online textbook that is OER, but they also have their own reader that goes along with it of primary sources. So that's a very easy place for me to go in and grab a document, pull it into my LMS, and either put it in an annotation tool, or I can even upload it into Perusal, the social e-reader, and my students can read those documents together, and they can annotate and comment and upvote and interact with one another using these free resources within Perusal, which is incorporated into our Canvas learning management system. And then, as I said previously, I love statistics. And so I always like to bring in historical statistics. And this is a price and wage by decade, and the students really have a great time. So if we're in the 1930s and we're covering the Great Depression, I'm going to send them there, and they're going to fill out some worksheets for me and try to figure out, like, how were they going to make it? If they were working at this job and making this much money and rent was this, so they can actually kind of work through the details. And it also begins to kind of show them kind of long-term studies too, where you can show them the differences between this is before these acts or amendments, et cetera, and going forward. So it's also helping them to understand how to analyze, how to think critically, how to use communication skills to talk about, what their particular discussion board topic is going to cover. And so these are all things that also feed into our student learning objectives of them being able to have these skills. And I talk a lot with my students about the fact that these skills in history class are transferable to their other classes, as well as being highly transferable ultimately to their jobs someday. We talk a lot about that, of being able to gather the data, understand the data, write about the data, and then present the data either in a written format or video or audio, that these are transferable skills and they're future ready skills for their future employment. And I think that provides some buy-in for the students as well, for them to see that that might be learning about this in a historical sense, but these are the same skills they may need in the future. So try to kind of make that connection. Okay, I think Mina, you're going to talk about the different licenses.
That's good. Thank you, Melissa. So there are, as I at the beginning of our talk said, there are different licenses. So when you are developing your OER course, please pay attention to different types of licenses. The first one is CC by NC ND. It is free to use, free to share. And if you just see CC by ND, that is free to use and share even commercially. If you see CC by NC, that is free to use, share, and even modify. The first two you cannot modify. If there is CC by NCND or CC by ND, you cannot modify. You can just use that as is. But if there is CC by NC, that is, you can modify that content. And the best one is CC by, where you can use, share, modify even commercially, not only in education, but even commercially you can use that. So please pay attention to what license each open source has and act accordingly. If there is a content which the license doesn't allow you to modify, please be mindful of that. And this is what we learned while developing our OER courses, that we need to pay attention to these licenses. And our goal for this presentation overall was to give you a list of resources that you can explore and while you are developing your own OER courses. So again, I am taking you to that resource page. You can scan this QR code and it will take you to all the resources my wonderful colleague Melissa has compiled in Canva. So this is time for questions.
Let me turn on my camera here. First, I have to tell you, I had the privilege to work at Collin College for a year. I loved it, loved it, loved it. I loved the culture, the environment, my colleagues. And thank you so much for doing a beautiful job with your presentation. I am curious to know whether the library team members are involved in selecting, participating in, or approving, I guess, or collaborating, I don't know, with the process of acquiring all this information.
They are available for collaborating. And in fact, when I was, I wasn't aware of the licensing. So that information I got from our librarian only. So yes, they are available for collaborating with faculty. And Melissa, you want to share your experience?
Yes, the library is just a wonderful storehouse of everything. And so at Collin, for your discipline, you have a library liaison. And so you can contact that reference librarian and say, hey, I really need, some resources on these topics. And they will help you find that. And then maybe it's in a database that they have that we can then put that link to that particular video within the class. The librarians are the ones that know how to do all of that. So they actually can help us get a much larger reach on resources. And then they can put together LibGuides. You can have them put a LibGuide just for your class if you would like. And then you can just refer your students to the LibGuide. But also they because they're so knowledgeable on the databases, there's just so many. It's hard for us to stay on top of, there's Alexander Street. There's just so many out there. Mm-hmm. And so when you need something, it seems like they always know, oh, I know where the video is. I know just the one. And so they are really, I think, very integral in putting these kinds of courses together and having those resources available for us and helping us understand, like Nina said, the proper licensing if we're going to use some things, whether we can modify it or not modify it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Margie, and we appreciate uh, your feedback on working at Colin. It
Yes.
is a great place, and I have lovely colleagues.
Yes.
It's so easy to collaborate with my colleagues, and it's a great work culture.
That's true.
Well, does anybody have a resource they want to share with us? Are there some great things out there that we need to know?
Yes.
Because we are always in intake. We're always
Absolutely.
learn.
A quick question: how did you get started with the OER? OER. How did that concept come about?
Okay, so for me, I started working with OER in 2017. The main motivation was the textbooks were becoming very expensive, and I
Ah,
had a couple of students in my classroom. They mentioned that they cannot afford the textbook, and my inability to help them, I felt really bad. So my main motivation was I needed something that is free of cost. And then I started looking for it. I had a colleague, she was using OER, and then she introduced me to her course. And I looked at her course. She was also using OpenStax textbook. And then gradually I started building my own course. I must say that in the beginning it was bare bones, and then gradually I started getting resources from others, and from conferences I got introduced to so many resources, and then within 2 to 3 years I had, I would say, so many resources, a rich course. uh, I would say as rich as publisher provided courses. Um, Melissa, you want to share your journey?
I think mine's pretty similar that my textbook was getting more and more and more expensive. And it didn't always have what I wanted to see in it. It didn't always have, some ancillaries are better than others. But what I wanted my students to have access to is recent scholarship. I wanted them to have access to scholars in the field currently writing books about Lincoln or whomever. And I wanted them to have much more interactive experiences, particularly like with the museums and simulations and the Google Earth maps, those sorts of things. I wanted them to use the information. And so there just really wasn't a book out there that was doing that per se. And so I went to a conference, I was introduced to my first fully online free textbook. And I just started with that. I was actually still in the classroom. I just started with that free textbook. And then from there, I began adding more to it. And every time I would go to a conference, I would learn something new. I would ask questions. And so conferences became a way for me to get those resources and ask my colleagues, also the librarians, as I was saying. And so mine then it's just kind of like Nina's. Mine built on itself. As the longer I'm doing this, the more resources that I'm getting. And I feel like my class is much better now than it was a year ago or 2 years ago or 3 years ago, because Nina and I both go to a lot of conferences. And so we like to really kind of bring that stuff back and see what we can implement. But for me, to the cost of the book, and then also it seemed very static. And this is not static. This is changing. I can change all the content when I want to. I can modify it, and I really try to keep things as they are when it comes to websites. And then there are a few depositories of lesson plans. And so I do try to make sure that I'm using the ones that are free for me to modify so that because many times those are written more for the high school level and I need to elevate the level of that. So I do look for those. And there are a lot of different repositories for that, but it has been a fun journey. You get to meet a lot of interesting people. You get to talk to a lot of people who are going to share things with you. And so, like I said, when I go to these, I'm always asking questions and always trying to gather to build a better class all the time.
It sounds like it's a wonderful way to remove the obstacles that students face when they are waiting for their financial aid to purchase the textbook and now they're behind. They don't do the homework because they don't have the textbook. And it sounds to me like this is the answer. It's beautiful what you're sharing. I love it.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
You're right. You are right because from day one, the book is already loaded in the class.
Yes.
And it's also it's movable because they can use it on their phone. They can put it on an iPad. Now, if you have a student that's like, oh, I have to have a book. The great news about most of these, particularly through OpenStax, is you can order the book. You can actually buy it. We have them in our libraries on reserve. So you can get a physical copy. You can download to your iPad. You can just use it online. You can use it on your phone. The OpenStax textbook allows you to use your Google account. And you can then save that book that way so that you can highlight and you can annotate that textbook using your Google account. And it will make note cards for you from that and study cards. So my students work within the book and they're highlighting and they're leaving comments. And then at the end of every chapter, they can just print those if they want to. And they've created their own study cards as they're working through. So I think it's a real benefit to our students. Like you said, sometimes we don't realize there's that delay of the financial aid. Then you got to order the book. Did the book come on time? And the worst part is, and I'm sure everybody has had this, the student has gone and bought the book and the access card won't work to the publisher content. And we can't fix that. We don't know what to do. And so I think for me, a lot of this also has been control. If something doesn't work, if I've loaded it in my LMS and it doesn't work and a student contacts me, I can go in and immediately correct the problem. Now, the only side part of that is every semester you have to continually check all your links because museums will change those links. So you do have to spend quite a bit of time making sure that your links are still valid. And if they're not, you have to make an adjustment. You have to always be in that continuous state of improvement. That's part of it. But there's also the freedom of that. If you don't want to use that anymore, you're not bound to it because it's in the publisher content and they've paid for it. Now you feel like they have to do it. No, it didn't cost them anything. If you don't like that assignment anymore, I made a big one using PBS Explorers one time. They have a really great one on Lewis and Clark as well. And I loved it for a while. And then I didn't love it anymore. And the best part is I just didn't use it anymore. I didn't have to worry about, the students being upset if they paid for something and then it didn't actually work.
And it also sounds, which is one of the things that I loved when I did my doctoral dissertation. I love the fact that the faculty is excited about the process to generate and create that engagement from the students, because I love all the different interactive activities. And I love economics. I mean, I used to teach microeconomics. And what a beautiful ability to interact, right? And simulation. We are moving, the technology is moving so fast. And the way that we keep our students engaged, I call it the discovery of knowledge. And how do we make that engagement possible is through the excitement that the professor brings into the classroom with those tools necessary to connect the knowledge. Isn't that beautiful?
Absolutely, absolutely. You are bringing in such an important point. I mean, this generation, they do not learn in a static old way. No, they need those simulations. They need their hands-on experiences, and OER provides us that way. We are not tied to a publisher for that material. We have so many resources that we can use, be it simulations, be it the tours, virtual tours. I mean, for Melissa's virtual tour and for Dallas Fed tour, like even from their computer, they are visiting a federal building or a history museum. How wonderful, how amazing that is.
Well, and I think it really inspires you to generate your own content. Like, we have a colleague who does environmental science, and they went to a water treatment plant, and they videoed and took pictures, and then they came back and they made their own content from what their tour was as instructors at this water treatment plant, and they were able to share that with their students. And you probably wouldn't do that if you had some publisher content. And the same thing for me. If I travel at all, it's going to be history related. And so tell my husband all the time, oh, I just need to have a whole separate travel account that's just like, I'm going to put this in my class someday. And so it's like historian will travel sort of thing. And so I take the pictures, I take the notes, I bring back little things, and I might make just a short little, I like to use Genially a lot. And then I kind of can share that with them because it can be very timely if it's in an upcoming chapter on something that we're going to be talking about, and share that with them. And I think that that really makes the students like the fact that you're very personal in that. I just saw this museum. I just went to this exhibit, or I just attended this lecture. I want to share this part with you. I'm currently reading this book. Here is the author's video. Watch it with me. So I think you're building much more that kind of content where the students feel very connected to the class and the professor feels connected, because it's not out of a, I don't know, it's not canned. I don't know how to say that.
Yes,
It's
yes.
it's live. It's live. This is happening. Like, I think that changes the feel of the course as well, that it's not just the same thing, that it's going to look different. It's going to have a different feel, and you're going to see much more of the professor's personality within those assignments, and in how we interact with the student with those assignments. And so building that community, I think this really does help with that in an asynchronous course format, which both Nina and I teach asynchronously in these courses. You really have to have a way to bring instructor presence into that space. And I think the fact that it's my voice making the video, even when I mess it up, even with all my mistakes, that, I'm just like, oh, well, it's fine. That was the dog. She'll come back in a minute. Then we're building community with the students. And I think that's what really can allow your OER to be very successful, particularly when you let them also take a turn in developing their own OER. When you let them create and bring that to the classroom and share, then I think that's kind of, like you were saying, this is kind of the beautiful part of it when it all comes together in that way.
It almost reminds me of photo journaling. I taught at the high school for years when I was pursuing my doctoral degree, and I just love that idea, that concept, right? Because you hit the nail on the head when you can explain what you are living, what you're experiencing, and bring it into the classroom. That becomes real, right? It connects the dots.
Yeah, and it brings out creativity, your own hidden
Yes,
creativity. I
yes,
mean, Melissa creates so nice, genially content, and it's amazing. I'm always in an awe when I see her genialities, how creative she becomes when she has created escape rooms. She has created even the posters using Genially. It's amazing how using OER content can hone in our own creativity.
yes. Thank you.
Well, I hate to interrupt this little chit chat here, but let's see, you mentioned about instructor presence. Yes, we had a session yesterday specifically about instructor presence for online courses. And it is, you have to think about it differently, but it's certainly doable if you want to be more present. So at any rate, I thank both of you for taking the time to talk with us. And I'm going to stop the recording.